Hello and welcome to our PAX panel. We're doing the Survivor's Guide to Building a Community, and I'm here with Victoria Tran, and she's joined me, and it's really exciting. Hello, welcome, and we're going to basically talk about how to survive in the indie game world and how to build that.
No, just how to survive.
Just how to survive.
Just how to stay alive.
There you go.
Yeah, that's all.
So let's do some introductions. Who are you, Victoria?
I'm going first. All right. Hello. I am Victoria. I am the community director over at a studio called Innersloth. We make Among Us and also another game called the Henry Stickmin Collection. And yeah, I am a community person through and through. I have worked with a bunch of different indie studios. Previously, I was the community strategist for Unpacking the game as a little side thing, and also I was the communications director at Kitfox Games. They make Boyfriend Dungeon and are publishing Dwarf Fortress and Paparazzi and a few other things. So yeah, I've had quite a few experiences in the indie community.
Yeah, you've got loads. Well, I'm a bit of everything. I've been a kind of online content creator for over 12 years, a voice actor, and in the last 3 to 4 years, I dived into the indie world because I love video games and wanted to finally just get in there and so forth. So I worked for a company called Big Sur Games, and we did a launch. It was an indie game, and then I've now gone to Recombobulated Games, where I'm the main voice actor for a cat and a Muppet spacesuit, and also the marketing director as well. So a bit of everything.
That's the indie life. Kind of just do
everything. So, well, we're gonna hopefully give you some really interesting information today and kind of our experiences, which will be good and maybe bad, but still good. So, let's start with what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have 4 different sections. So, the first is going to be basically what are the jungles of social media? Like, they're all very different, or are they the same? And then we're going to talk about what you need in your backpack to basically begin with your community and so forth, and how do you navigate if what do you need if there's a lion suddenly? How are you going to tackle it? Not at all, basically. But yeah. And then we're going to talk about who can go on the adventure. So who is your community for, and who are you letting in your community, and what do you want your community to be, and what are you going to see as a result? And then we're going to talk about our experiences and things that have gone great and things that have gone not so great, but that's okay. Cool. So, social media jungles. Which path do you want to take? I think I've got all of these. So Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Discord, and Reddit, Facebook, Imager, Instagram. Did I miss any at all?
No, but would I be surprised if there was another new social media platform within the time
of
us talking about this and it going probably?
I was gonna say
probably something else.
Especially because literally the other day, the update on Twitter, and I was like, communities, because I've not seen them before. So I was like, what is this? And I was like, my phone had just changed. I was like, what is this? And I was
you have downvoting on Twitter yet?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. There we go. And you can do 10-minute videos on TikTok now.
But people only stay for 10 seconds, so it's really hard.
I can't.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I was gonna say. So I thought it'd be quite fun to kind of do pros and cons of each of these. So if I maybe do a pro, you do a pro, then we go through the cons and stuff of each one.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with Twitter. I'm gonna do a pro. I'm gonna say that you can connect with loads of other indie developers on Twitter. That's their place, I've noticed, and it's just easy to network with them and reach out to them as well, because a lot of them have their DMs open. So if you're ever have a question about stuff and you're like, hi, I'm in an indie game too, can you help me? Please. They respond and so forth. How about you?
I would just put Twitter's fast communication.
Yeah.
Especially for our game, because there's usually so many kind of different things going on. Just being able to quickly type out something and be like, all right, be free and have fun with that information. That's really useful.
Yes, I was literally, that's like the next one. It says direct contact with communities and like direct messaging straight away. So I say as
Hmm.
well, like, I've noticed that the followers on Twitter, they tend to stay around a lot more than the other social medias. Like, they kind of fall off a lot more if you don't continuously just keep posting content and so forth. So that's a good
Hmm.
one. So follower retention's really high, and the more you nourish, the more it builds. I feel on Twitter especially. Uh,
Wait, are we continuing pros? Or are we going cons?
I'm gonna say
Pro con, pro con.
con. Did you want to start? Did you
Yeah,
want to start with a con of Twitter?
sure. I think with Twitter, one of the cons is kind of the flip side of what you were saying in the beginning of like a lot of game developers are on
Yeah,
there. And I think you can end up getting stuck marketing to game developers rather than to your actual players because it's very as much as like all social media platforms are sort of their own bubble. I think Twitter in particular has its own like game industry bubble.
yeah.
uh so how well it does on like game developer Twitter isn't necessarily how well it will do in the public.
I was gonna say because like there is a lot of hashtags and so forth, and like wishlist Wednesday, follow Friday, but like everyone else in there, a lot of indie devs. So it's like, what exactly? How can you push out and kind of break out into like the audience and get others in there that aren't all using the same hashtags, and then just that.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be very difficult. I'm just gonna grab another con about Twitter. The algorithm changes on a weekly basis quite a bit. So you might have put out a GIF like that's really successful, like a video clip, and use like similar, use those hashtags and so forth. And because so many people are using like indie dev, Unreal or Unity, it goes there and then it just kind of goes into the abyss sometimes, or sometimes it will be picked up quite a bit. Have you found that with like videos or when you put stuff out?
Sort of, but honestly, that's like a con I apply to every
Oh,
single
gee.
social media platform. I mean, all their algorithms can change at the drop of a hat, and they don't need to tell you. I mean, they can,
Yeah.
but they don't usually, right? So for like yeah, for sure, like Twitter, I've seen like things change and people being like, oh, if you put a link in the tweet, it will suppress it. But some people are like, oh, no, it doesn't. But you can also say that for like, I don't know, let's say like Facebook and how like you have to promote like boost your post in order for it to go out to all of your followers, and that wasn't really something that they really said outright, and you just kind of had to hear it. So for all of them, I'm like the algorithms kind of just change.
Yeah, it always just changes. I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
say that with a lot of them as well. I was gonna talk about imposter syndrome. No pun intended. Uh, uh, Basically, as I said, with going viral one day, that isn't going to be exactly the same as the next day. And I've noticed like going into that kind of, going into social media and like going on all these platforms and so forth and trying to do these videos, it can be absolutely exhausting because one day, as I said, you'll get a viral video. Then the next day, you'll do exactly the same style, and then it won't hit as
Mm-hmm.
many people. You'll have like 20k likes on one video. You do a second one, it will be 100, and you'll be like, everything is exactly this, like, it's the same length, it's a different trending, it's like you tick all the boxes, but it just doesn't get pushed out, and then you kind of are continuously kind of chasing that viral formula that isn't just, it's like a lot of luck as well, so it's like always just trying to put that on yourself and be like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, yeah, it can definitely be a little bit spooky in that
Yeah.
sense.
um I was gonna say as well, because you mentioned like boosting a post, because I was gonna say a little bit about Facebook, is that you have to boost the post to have the audience actually see what you're trying to put out and so forth. And if you don't have much of a budget, then that's kind of a struggle. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
I kind of put it into like the other social medias, because like especially for indie devs, like they don't have much money to keep doing these boosts and boosts and boosts. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
with TikTok and Twitter, you can do boosts, but you don't have to as much. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I've never really made it a secret that I don't like using Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't like using Facebook for social media stuff.
That's why I put
So
it in the other
in
category
turn,
because I don't use it much either.
so yeah, we don't need to go like super in depth into it,
Mm.
but I don't find it very useful for many indies
Yeah.
or game developers in general. Again, maybe I'm sure there are some people who are very successful with their Facebook groups and all of that kind of thing. But for me, the fact that you do have to boost it for the people who followed your account who want to see your stuff,
Yeah. It's just
the fact that you have to boost it to get them to see it, no,
it just
no,
doesn't
no,
make
no,
sense as
no.
well. And like in terms of ads and so forth, I've always found like it doesn't. It's not organic ads, and like you don't know where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, like trying to boost a post, you're like, where's all these likes coming from? And then they've done the budget. They're like, congratulations, we've done your boost thing. You're like, what happened? And you're like looking around, like, I don't see what you've done. What have you done?
Yeah, wild.
So yeah.
Um, yeah, it's all right. Just let's just you can see the pain every time I feel like I heard a community manager talk about Facebook. Like there's just some pain in their eyes. They're just like,
They just glaze over. Like mine just glaze over when
it
it's like
does. It
we should
really
be
does.
promoting on them more, and I'm like, should we? should, should we? um, so maybe let's talk about maybe TikTok because I know
Sure.
you had a lot of success on TikTok as well. So how was
Yeah,
your
TikTok
how was
is
your
a
experience with
fun one.
TikTok?
It's a fun one. It's a good one. I do like TikTok. I think what they do quite well so far above the rest of the social media platforms is just organic discoverability.
Yes, yeah,
That is especially for indies, obviously like one of the biggest things. And the fact that like the my for you page will show me things because I think unlike most of the other social media platforms, like you usually have to follow someone, you have to click on the thing in order to like you know
get yeah,
for to start seeing it
yeah, yeah,
on your like newsfeed or whatever. But TikTok is like, no, I am giving you something and you will like it or you
yeah.
won't, and then if you don't, you scroll past it. But yeah, the fact that it kind of just throws something at you that you maybe didn't ask for at first, and then you're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool, I
And
like that a
it
lot.
gets ridiculous with the algorithm on the For You page. It's like, are you burnt out? Are you this? Are you that? You're watching this video because you're all these things. And I'm like, that's enough of that for today. Like, you just like, okay, thank you.
Like, there's something going on
Yeah.
here.
But yeah, like I've had a similar experience. Like we've had the most success with recombobulator games for Spaceboat on TikTok, and it's just been like doing cat video, rating cat videos, video game cats, doing game footage, and then like just showing off other indie games, and like the responses and stuff have been like it's the same audience sometimes, but then there's like a huge influx of loads of people who are actually interested in it, and actually the comments are actually
Mm.
like they actually want to be there and they're actually like, oh, can we, how much is this?
Yeah.
And they ask questions and they're so nice and you respond and they're like, thank you. So it just feels like it's one of the ones which actually gets to people straight away. Whereas
Hmm,
like
hmm.
in terms of YouTube, uh, putting out videos is once again like exactly what you said and so forth. Like they don't exactly push the videos out to any of your viewers or followers unless you're doing the bell, the subscribe, and something out. Like it's just a whole process which it just stops anyone really being able to see what you're doing. Like you post a video and they're like, they see it like 3 months later, and you're like, well, that update was great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult thing for a lot of platforms to balance, and that we're also trying to balance, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because, like, I guess out of
mm,
these, like, only pick mainly a few that I mainly really focus on and so forth because trying to, juggle all of those. Obviously, Discord is very important as well, but, like, trying to post consistently every single day on all those different content is kind of insane and scary. And I try not to do it. I try to recycle stuff as much as possible. Like, if there's a TikTok video, I'll then put it on the Instagram or then bring it over and so forth. Have you found, like, content you will bring it over to other things just to make it a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, actually, it's sort of like a topic that I was going to bring
Oh,
up a bit later,
oh,
but it's yeah, it's more like, but I do like the cross
mm,
posting for sure. Um, but at the same time, and this is why it's like I understand that each community is different on each
yeah,
platform. Yeah.
yeah. And it's crazy when you kind of go into these jobs and so forth because they're like, right, this is how many this is how many social medias you need to start engaging with at the start. You're like, it was very overwhelming and so forth. I don't know if it was for you when you saw these and you were like, okay, where and what do I do and what do I post and how do I spread that time out? Like if you're part time as well at the
Hmm.
start, I was part time. It's like, how do I put this many hours into these things and like make it consistent and so forth? So that was kind of insane. But
Hmm.
yeah, I focus on free and then just recycle stuff. I'm trying to think if there's any other cons you'd like to speak about any of these at all, like Reddit maybe, or Imager, or Instagram.
I mean, like, I think there's so many topics that we could get into. Honestly, this we could just stay on this slide for the entire hour, and like we'd have so much to
I
talk
was gonna
about.
say,
Uh,
especially Reddit. But yeah,
oh my God, Reddit has so much. Yeah, I mean, Reddit is also great, honestly. Like, I also like there's a lot of good things that come with Reddit and being active on there, and then there's obviously the bad things. And it's just like, oh,
yeah,
I I think with like any social media platform, it's one of those things where it's like if you found something to just work well with your community, it doesn't matter if I say I hate Facebook. If it's like someone has found a lot of success and loves using Facebook and it's like, you know what, this is my favorite platform to use. I'm like,
yeah.
all right, go ahead.
And it kind of
It works either
yeah, and
way.
it kind of brings us on to the next slide, which just says, are they the same? Are they different? I think they're very different, but kind of the same in some cores.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, they are super different. I think like this was something that was kind of important for me to
Yeah,
point to want to like talk about because it's just like in the ways like sure their algorithms are different and like the ways you post on them are different, also just like the tone is different, right? Like the humor that you see on TikTok and the kinds of things that you can post on TikTok, like for example, like the way I kind of think about it is like what it would be super weird if every time you tweeted you posted a picture of your face, right?
yes.
But with TikToks it's super normal to just like
Be
film
like,
yourself and talk to the
yeah,
camera. But on Twitter it's like what's happening here? um and like the kinds of comments you get, right? Like TikTok comments very different from
yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
comments, and the ways in which like the algorithm boosts whichever comment is like at the top of your video or your post is really different. So just being able to kind of differentiate between the different communities I think is super important.
yeah. Exactly. I agree entirely. No, because I feel they're same but very different and so forth, and just need to stick to one or a few, and then just as you said, success can come in any way, and it might be one of those there, and it might not work for some people, but completely accelerate someone else's community. So it's
Mm-hmm,
always going to
mm-hmm.
be a lucky bag, like a lucky dip and so forth, if it's going to work or not. But yeah, like you said with the
Yeah.
trending sounds as well, having like doing tweets with your face always and like dancing and stuff, like every single tweet, like, huh. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh my God.
But yeah, well, let's go to the next slide, which is all about backpack supplies and what we're going to need for our jungle experience. Like, what are we going to do and what is the core of a community? And let's go to my pizza slices because you're probably hungry. So let's talk about pizza.
Oh gosh. I do honestly love just like a cheese
Do
pizza.
you?
Just a plain cheese
Is it
pizza.
like loads of extra cheese or just like just plain margarita?
Oh no, loads of oh, but I could also do a margarita, like a good margarita
Yeah.
pizza. Yes, yes. And also just a pizza with tons of cheese on it.
And
Yes.
like cheese
I
crust as
love it.
well. Like cheese crust with double cheese with double cheese.
Oh my gosh, yes. So good. Ugh, I love cheese. I'm like slightly lactose
Oh
intolerant too,
no.
so I shouldn't be like ingesting so much cheese, but I don't
It's
care.
the experience, right? It's
I,
experience.
it is. It's the joy of extra cheese.
Well, so everyone loves pizza. from this slide. But we want to basically talk about putting out a slice of what you want with your community, or specifically if you're working on an indie game, what do you want to put out? What don't you want to put out? And what kind of results are you going to get from that? So, for instance, if you put out no slices of pizza at all, you're gonna probably not have much attraction to like what you're trying to do. So if you're like, here is my website for my game or what I'm promoting and stuff, you click on the website and it's like just an error. You're like, oh well, cool, cool. uh, but basically in the beginning you want to show off the best thing that you can, be it like a really good meme or a graphic from the game or something that can just kind of entice people in and maybe stay a little bit longer to see more about the game. And also at the start, it's important to not kind of exclude anyone and just kind of make things that just kind of, I feel like just kind of lighthearted and stuff, and not too serious at the beginning. Like, not like it needs to be this certain way and stuff. I found that can make a huge difference in just building the community from scratch. And then there is too many toppings on a slice of pizza. So I feel like if you start at the beginning of a community and you're putting out like 7 tweets every single day, and there's loads and loads, it's just like absolute white noise. And if you're doing like, if you're kind of like in a Discord server and you're atting everybody like every hour, a lot of the people that are going to go to that community, they're just going to get fed up with it. Like sometimes I mute a lot of Discord servers because there's so many things. I don't want to leave it, but I don't want to just keep getting like bombarded by stuff. And a lot of the time it's not going to be like a big announcement or anything. It's just going to be minor things. So I found that when it comes to a big announcement or something that's really important, like because you're making so much white noise, that it's going to completely stamp out your effect. Like, oh, we have, carp out, and then no one knows because you've done 7 other slides about a flower or something. Uh, what pizza slices have you dealt with? Do you think this is kind of like similar to how it should be in like terms and everything? Like too less or too much?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a question of like quality versus
Yeah.
quantity, right? Of like, how do you, it's a lot of like, there's the social media algorithm that's like, please post as frequently as possible, versus how much content you actually have and the kind of quality content that you can put out. Uh, and I think in this instance, it's like, it also really depends on where you are with your
Yeah.
game. Right. So I've had people ask, like, how do I build a community? Except I haven't announced the game yet, and we don't actually have a community like beforehand, and we can't release any content, but we still want a community. I'm like, ooh, that's very
Yeah, I was
difficult.
gonna say, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I I was given free assets to work with for a month on to 2 months, and that was very hard because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not given anything else and you want to show people, they want to see more of the game, don't they? They want to see like backgrounds, characters, and so forth. But if you're like only just given one animation, if you keep reusing it, I reused it, and like it was on Reddit, and someone was like, I've seen this before. I was like, oh no. And you just like kind of like, you kind
Yeah.
of like back away and you're like, oh
Yeah.
no.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And like it's easier for me now because Among Us has it's like there's nothing to spoil with
Yeah.
Among Us, right? Like you the gameplay is there, people have played the game is
Yeah.
out. It's technically like sure if like we have a big update then there could be spoilers there, but in terms of like just gameplay and the fact that it's continually updating, this is a little bit easier for me. But when I was working at like Kitfox, which mainly focuses on narrative games, it's really difficult because you don't actually want to spoil the story
Yeah.
or the entire game. So it is really finding that balance of being like, okay, like there are assets that you will reuse, and it's being really creative with it, and trying to figure out what works for your community and finding how many in this instance like how many toppings on a pizza is like good enough,
Yeah.
versus like just feeding the algorithm and being like, all right, just take some
I've
stuff.
done what I did and just leave it for there. There you go.
Yeah, all right, you're taking it
Yeah.
now, goodbye.
Oh, Yeah, I completely agree with that and so forth. Like, and you have to be creative, especially if you have the assets. For instance, Animal Crossing was popular a while back, and I was like, the only asset I had for like a week and a half was just a face. So I was like, I took all the sunflowers and then I just put the face on all the sunflowers, and then made that into a tweet. I was like, there you go,
Well, there we
there you
go.
go, creative. It's new, it's new.
I know. Hello,
Yeah,
hello.
exactly.
For sure, for sure.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about the core. We did a little bit actually. We said about game assets being
Sure.
golden. And if you don't have any hook on your pizza, although margarita is very good, it's not going to be that exciting if you're just like, here's the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also, I wanted to talk a little bit about nurturing people that are basically in the community from the start and so forth. And they join all the newsletters, they join the Discord, and like, for instance, I have someone in our community at the moment which every single morning he does like a really sweet message to everyone in the server. It's like, happy morning everyone, I hope you have a fantastic day and this Tuesday is going really well. And it'd be like, and then a Wednesday message and a Thursday message, and it's like a different one. So every single day he's doing
Aw.
one, and it's like stuff like that. Like, he's been with us from the very beginning and so forth, and it feels like if you don't nurture people like that and like, hey, that's really awesome what you're doing and so forth, it kind of like the community does fall a little bit and so forth, and those people might actually go if you're not paying any attention
Mm-hmm.
to them or just being like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. you know how do you feel about nurturing the good beans in your community, because you've got a huge one, so how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. But it is very important, right? Like that's one of the big things. I think that's actually kind of how you know that you're starting to build a community when you have like the regulars that come in, when you have people who are advocates for your game and all of that. And I think so much of it, and like I'm always like afraid of like the ways people talk because I'm like, it's not like you can't just do it like it's a mind game thing, but like you genuinely have to care about your community and the people in
Yeah.
it in order to nurture the good
Mm.
beans, right? It's like um like taking the time to be there, taking the time to do community events, taking the time to get to know the people that you continually see in your
Yeah.
mentions and all of that kind of stuff. um yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's not a quick thing, and it's not a here's just the standard steps you can do and it applies to everyone. It's like it's very contextual, and it's really all about caring and noticing things within your community rather than following like a 5-step program to finding the good beans in your community.
Are you a good bean? Like, get out. Like, I was like, no, you don't do like.
Yeah, basically that's it.
Oh, yeah. And it's great as well with the payoff and everything, because they just keep returning and so forth. Well, they do stuff which they start like doing fan art and stuff, which is, I don't know, it's like it's the best feeling in the world when you're working on a game and people just do fan art and they put so much effort into it and they're like, I drew this. You're like, you. It's just like amazing, honestly, when I see it and so forth. So it's people
Mhm.
like that. They're like, because obviously you're like, oh, that's amazing. I love that. We love the fan art and stuff. So then they do more, and then they do more, and then it just keeps building like that. And then it does go a long way and so forth, which is kind of the other point, which is never underestimate a community. Like, to think like a community isn't capable of doing really awesome things, or just kind of like, this is the bar standard, we need to do this, so we kind of need to have a community, I suppose. Like, thinking like that, I feel would be very kind of, there's no point if you're gonna kind of think like that. You feel like, yeah, we just need to do this to sell a
Mhm.
game. Like, if you can't, if yeah,
Yeah.
as you said, if you need to kind of go in there and just be like, scope it out and so forth, and it's not a step by step by step and like evaluating people and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's a confusion a lot of people
Mm.
have with the job of like community management isn't sales.
Yeah.
Right? Like our like sure, what we do may help in sales and all of that kind of stuff, but we're not actually salespeople
Exactly.
necessarily. Yeah, we're more here to like facilitate community interactions and community
Yeah.
building. And then marketing is its own thing, sales is its own thing, and they do get mixed up because indie means you often tend to wear a lot of hats. But
Yeah.
if you're hiring a community manager, that's usually not their focus.
Yeah. because that's, you know, as you said, they're there to kind of build things from scratch and kind of make sure that, because at the end of the day it is about the community that stays there for the updates, it's people that stay there for the next, what you're going to push out next, the stories, the characters and so forth. It's very different from like a car salesperson, like, here's the object, do you like it, okay, take it, you know. It's
Yeah,
we don't really do that.
basically.
Like, it's just like, as you said, loads of hats as well, so you're like, which one shall I do today?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're gonna move on to basically just a little summary of that area. Basically, have a good slice at the start and have rules in place so there's no fires. But I feel like in terms of rules as well, not being extremely, not having, giving people chances and so forth. You probably have like a system where you have like certain strikes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah, on like a Discord
yeah,
thing, you mean?
or we like put them in the room that's called the airlock room or something, and just like, you've been really bad for really, you know, for 5 minutes if they've like broken certain things or so forth repeatedly. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying they say something like, you know, they go in there and say like a joke or something like, that's it, yeah, you're banned, get out.
I hate jokes. You're not allowed to have
like
fun in this
like
community.
how dare
Nah.
you, how who are
How dare
you?
you?
Like,
Please.
yeah, so just obviously you probably have more stricter rules and so forth as it get, you know, communities bigger again and so forth. Do you have like, as I said, you have probably a system in terms of rules? If someone, like, what is your system if someone comes in and they're like, I don't know, I hate your game, like, what do you do? Would you just be like, just be like, oh,
Peace. No.
like,
So I just go and cry in the corner.
oh
I'm like, okay,
no.
okay. Damn. No, no, no. Um, yeah, it again, it's one of those things where it's very contextual, and I think in this instance, like we have a rule set, and that is like we have a code of conduct, we have all of those things, and it is very important. But in the same vein, moderators so important. Like especially when talking about Discord, I'm like, we would be nowhere without our moderators. They're the ones who really help, like, you know, things run, especially when you're busy as a community manager doing other things. So yeah, having, we do have like a strike
Okay.
system, we do use bots, and we do have all of those kinds of things. But I think one of the biggest things is that at the end of the day, you need people looking at the things and using judgment, because bots, as good as they sometimes can be, just can't catch
Yeah, it's gonna,
everything, or
yeah.
like the nuance of a situation, or even turn around a situation. They're very reactive rather than, you know, creating kind of a proactive community. And I think that's part of it. It's not just about rules, and it's not just about banning people, but it's about kind of having that proactive um
Kind of approach. Yeah.
activity within the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, that leads on to the next one as well about cultivation and like, when you make a community, Victoria, like, what is like the kind of, how do you go about it? Like, do you go in with like an aggressive approach, or like, what is like, do you go in a sense like everyone's welcome and so forth, and everyone can kind of be themselves? Like, how do you go about cultivating?
Yeah, this one is like, I think also one of the, I feel like so much of community management is contextual. It's like it depends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like it depends. Like, for example, like when I was working on unpacking, and I was like being introduced to the community there and creating a space there, like what they needed was very different from what Among Us needed.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're working with different scales, and when you're working with like different genres of a game, sometimes it just like really changes. But I think most of all, like the thing that I always do when I'm starting to cultivate a community is just think of the main, like three, let's say, main values that I get from the team, or that, you know, we kind of build together, of what we want our community to look like. So because I think when you have those values, you can create activities, and you can create things and structures that are based on those values and are in line with that, so that no matter what happens, you can kind of always refer back to it, and the community knows what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Oh, that's really cool. I wanted your insight because, like, as I said, you have a lot of a bigger one, whereas I have like a smaller indie community. So, like, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
like how you deal with it, it's interesting to hear your approach.
what are your kinds of ways that you
So
cultivate
I kind
them?
of go in there and, as I said, like I kind of let people kind of be themselves and come to the community, and like anyone's welcome and so forth. And like I just try to see what they like and stuff, like where the conversation goes. And like it would be like even as simple as like asking, because if we're naming certain things in the game, or asking like seeing what lands the best. Like, oh, this alien, what do you want it called? What do you want it to, like? And some people might not respond to it, like, don't forget about that then. Or a really good one
Yeah.
was we were trying to work out, we've made loads of like jelly animals for our game that you can pet.
Ooh.
um we're like, should we do a jelly dog and so forth? We just asked everyone, we're like, do you want a jelly dog that's literally made out of this cherry jelly? They're like, yes please. So then it's like, okay, you're
Yes.
down for this. So now we have a petable jelly dog in the game. You can just go over and keep petting. Yeah. So
I love that. That's
just,
great.
yeah, stuff like that. Like a lot of the times people just so far in space boats community, like everyone's just like, just keep doing what you're doing, we just want to see the progress of the game. Like just show off things and just show off new shaders or anything. Like they're just interested in so much of the stuff, and it's not too hard to, I've not had any, touch wood, I've not had any problems with anyone in the community so far. Yeah, so I just try to cultivate that, like see what's there, see what's good and stuff, and just keep pumping that in everything.
Hmm.
So which kind of goes down to listen to what your community has to offer. And some days you're gonna have things that are positive, and other days you're gonna have bad criticism. Like I was gonna ask, how do you deal with bad criticism in a community? If someone's like, I hate, every level in this, like where's the level for me and so forth. Like how do you speak to the dev teams, or is there like an inner monologue that goes through your head and so forth? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like again one of those things where it's like it
It
depends.
depends. Yeah.
It depends. But I think it's like, it's one, like sometimes people just don't understand necessarily what is good criticism or like what is exactly
Yeah.
helpful, and what has happened, right? Like if their game crashed and they lost like all their progress on something, that is really
Yeah.
frustrating. And I'm not saying that justifies any like abuse or terrible
Yeah. Yeah.
language, but it's like, okay, I see like where you're coming from and I need to adjust for that. And I think when it comes to like backerism, it's so much of the time, honestly, I think when people are complaining and stuff, like they don't even necessarily need a solution half the time. It's just they want to be heard and they want to feel like what they went through mattered. And that's kind of the main ways in which I tackle bad
Oh, okay.
criticism. Um, if we're talking about like abusive messages, then that crosses a line. And then that's when I'm like, no,
You're like,
I real like on you've lost your opportunity to actually be heard in this matter because that's not tolerated here.
yeah.
Um but yeah, and it's like if we can turn bad criticism into something that's more helpful and productive for both of us, like for the dev team and for the person in general, then I'm more than happy to do it. But it is just being able to read the room and being able to be like, these are the boundaries. If you cross them, then
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. And as you said, like if there's like obviously like someone loses all their stuff, or there's a bug in the game, like that does need to be heard to and so forth. But there's a way you can go about it, like being like, I hate your game, I hate all of you and so forth. There's a bug in the game. It's like, how do you think you could have addressed that differently? Like how you could have just said, hey, here's my frustration. Even if it's slightly angry, there is a difference between just swearing at
Mhm.
someone and being like, I'm really frustrated about this, can you do anything about
Yeah.
it? Like you're going to get a completely different response from the people around you if you go for the other
Mhm.
one. And most of all, have fun. Do you have fun? Like,
I already told you this is a no fun
oh, I'm
zone.
sorry.
I don't exactly. I never have fun. I haven't had fun since I was a child. No, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say.
have a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it, right? Like, as much as people may talk about the bad things about community, I mean, like the reason so many of us stay in it and do
Yeah,
it is because it's really fun.
I was gonna
I
say
love having fun with the
it is,
community.
and
It's
it's just
great.
like
Yeah.
I don't think I have ever had that experience in any other job or anything where it's like so intricate in that sense. Like it just continuously builds, and it's like you
Hmm.
build with the people, you grow with the people. So yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now, who can be in your community and who can't. We did touch on this a little bit about the harassment and so forth and like abuse. And you did
Mm-hmm.
say about some house rules and safe spaces. We completely agree on those as well, because I feel like if you make a game or you make a community and you're very like, you can't be here because you're like this, it just makes it really bad, and it kind of makes your community, in a sense, it makes it, you know, I would not like to join a server and then someone be like, are you, you know, are you a female? And then I say, yes, I am. And then they go, get out. We don't want you here. We don't like you here. Get out of here. You're like, you're never going to return, are you? Like, it's not going to be a great experience. Uh,
Yeah. And I think it's like the thing where, I mean, I hope you haven't actually experienced a server like
no,
that.
I haven't.
Um, but it is one of those things where I'm like, there are so many different spaces out
Mm,
there that it's like, sometimes it's just like, hey, maybe this isn't the server for
yeah.
you. And that's okay too, in depending.
Yeah.
Let's not get super into
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's just like, the ways in which different communities interact. Like, maybe you want a quieter server that is smaller, and that's like kind of a place that you thrive in. Maybe you want like a bigger server where there's like constant events and you're like, yes, this is so
Yeah.
fun. I've seen so many different kinds of communities flourish, and I think, yeah, it's not that every space has to be the same. It's just that there are, certain rules and certain codes of conduct that probably work for different communities.
Yeah. I was going to say about that. Like, interchanging. It depends. It depends what community you want. If you do want the very intimate one, or
Mm-hmm.
a community that is like hype all the time and so forth, and there's nothing wrong with wanting either. Which is what I was
Mm-hmm.
going to say as well, is be authentic to yourself in what you're building with your community and so forth. Like, if you put out a face at the start with your
Yeah.
brand and so forth, and then they're going to kind of expect that and come back to that, especially if you do like amazing Twitter work, and they're like, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
stop playing this game if you leave the company, because I've had that experience with you and so forth, because you've made it an even better experience by being the creator of this and so forth. As opposed to if one day you're going to be like, really nice, and then the next day you're like, I don't like any of you. but like, but not in like a joke way, like in a serious way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I found that some mistakes can happen in like when you start building up a community and so forth. Like, I found it's very experimental. Like, some things don't
Mm-hmm.
work. Like, I found in the past, like, a lot of giveaways don't work.
Yeah.
And don't get as much attraction as you'd like and so forth. And it feels like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a constant growth thing, and it's constantly like, does this work? Does this not work? How do they respond to this? And is this good? And should I do more of it? I'm always constantly having those
Yeah.
questions in my head. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, do you have any other core values that I'm missing here? I think I've got them all.
Yeah, no, I think it's good.
Cool. House rules are very good as well. I'm just gonna go straight into game development and how much you should show. And do game devs need community?
No, be
No, I was
alone.
like, be alone, be alone. Uh, as you said with your game, there's not many spoilers and so forth, but uh, you might have like, you know, like a Switch launch or something. Like, you might have announcements that you probably hold off on because of, you know, NDAs and so forth. Do you feel like, although you've kind of answered this already, you said like it's good to show off like some assets here and there, um,
Mhm.
but not go overboard with it too much. And
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like it's still. I think one of the most frustrating parts of game development is just not being able to talk about
yeah,
things for so long. Like, I'm sure like people in chat or like other developers can like see like when, for example, you have like a game showcase going on and people like have like their
yeah,
reveal trailer or something, and you see all the devs go like, "Oh my God, I can finally talk about it." It's one of those things. Maybe not as big as a reveal, but yeah, if you have like updates, if you have like little things coming up, I think being able to hint at them, or like maybe if you can, again, without breaking any NDAs or stuff, it is really fun and nice to be able to kind of get hype with your community,
Yeah.
especially because it's not like when you post one thing on social media, all of your followers see it. Sometimes you have to kind of repeatedly be like, by the way, this is still happening.
I've had that. Like, by the
Oh
way,
yeah.
the demo is out. They're like, there's a demo? I'm like, yes, there's a demo.
Yeah. And it happens no matter like what scale, right? So like same with Among Us of like, hey, here's like this huge push, and like I see it in all the like outlets, and I see people talking about it and like making YouTube videos about it and talking about it on Twitter, and there's still gonna be someone going in like, hey, when's this thing coming out? And then everyone's like, it already came out, buddy. They're like, oh
yeah, like, oh, don't
sorry.
worry.
Didn't
Don't
realize.
worry about it.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so yeah, good balance is good. And
Yes, balance is
and
good.
also animal pics are really good as well. And any community from devs or anyone, like we've on my server we've made just a pet channel, so people just post pictures every single
I
day.
feel like everyone has like a pet channel.
It's just you need that like you need that chill out from a day. You just need to just go and look at key pictures just for like a few minutes and be like, okay.
Yeah. Just finally.
Yes, relief. And then I'm just going to quickly do an experience which went really well with an alien that we made in the game. We asked the audience if he like can have a nose or not a nose, what kind of option he wants. And he's basically designed specifically in the game for the community. So if you ever get stuck in our game, you just go over to him and he helps you and tells you like hints and so forth, and he will put you in the right direction. So he's there for anyone that ever needs help. So what we did is we just started off with a nice little sketch. We were like, does he need a nose or no nose? And then everyone was like, no, just this. And then from that, we ended up rigging him, putting him in the game. And it's really nice to see like streamers and people actually find him now. Because if you just keep asking him questions over and over again, you get like a new pet unlocked, which is great in the game. And so you just walk around with it the whole time. So that worked. And have you had any experiences with you which has like completely impacted a decision and it's been really good?
Yeah. Gosh. I think one of the things that the most recent example that I can think of is probably when we were communicating our cosmic cubes, which is monetization in Among Us, and our roles. And the way in which we did it was literally just we tried to just be as transparent as possible. And if people don't know about it, it's basically like in order to like talk about the monetization, because we wanted it to be like very transparent, because like Among Us is free on mobile and like $5 I think on Steam and stuff. We're like, look, servers cost money. we need some way to support this. And the trailer was basically that, plus, roles were just hype and we were very excited about it. And being able to be that transparent with our community and talk about it, I think was something that, again, about like, maintaining open connection and communication went really well.
I was going to say, because if you put it out and you didn't explain anything, like, just like, you need to be paying and like they don't know why, then yeah, there would have been a complete like, we're angry about this and what are you doing, stealing all our monies, like what is this? The flip side, is there any situation where you feel like you've not listened to the community, or you've tried to listen but it's not gone out the best, or it's been like a disaster?
Honestly, I wouldn't say there's something that I've done where I was like, oh my gosh, it's a disaster in terms of like community communications. There have been like marketing things that I've done where I'm like, that was embarrassing. But I think in terms of like Among Us, the problem that I've found obviously is just like the sheer scale of our player base. Means that everyone has a different priority, and everyone is sure that their priority is the most important priority. And so it's like, okay, it's having to balance everything and trying to communicate and be like, yep, we hear you, and like we want to be able to do that. But there are so many, there like our laundry list of things is
Yeah.
huge. And we are working on, and sometimes, the thing that you work on is something no one really asked for, but you're like, you need this.
You need this fix in the game, because
You
if you don't
don't,
have it,
yeah, you don't know it,
you will
but you need it.
disappear in the game.
So,
It's really fundamental.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
as it says there, not every suggestion can be put into the game, if not straight away at all. If there's some suggestions which are like, really expensive suggestions, like with like 20 brand new characters in a month in the game, then you're like, oh, that's gonna lot. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because I think there's so many. It's like it is harder. It is quite difficult to put things in games,
Yeah,
and it's very hard to
that.
explain how difficult
Yeah,
it is.
like no, you just grab the
Yeah.
picture and you put it in, and that's it. And you're like, yeah, okay.
I
I wish
wish.
it was that
If
easy. I was like,
only.
I wish it was that easy.
If only.
But like, you've got a picture, just
Yeah.
make it happen. You're like, okay. But yeah, so yeah, there is a flip side, but in a sense, when you do get some of those features that the community just say, like if you've done the bug fixes and so forth, then the community is really going to enjoy that and so forth. Like they're going to enjoy that they can play the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that one time I stepped on a butterfly. Our community jungle experiences. Basically, how have you survived, and like what have you learned from surviving in this huge, huge jungle? What has it made you as a person into, and do you feel like it's still very different from before you like entered into all of this, or do you feel you're a bit the same?
Honestly, a little bit of
Yeah.
both. It's one of those things where it's like I love community management, and I think from my own personal experiences, it's always been something that I feel like it's always been a part of
It's
me
always been a
somehow.
dream. It's always been there, yeah.
Yeah, but I think what it is like community management has shown me just so many wonderful things about
Yeah.
people from literally all around the world. And I'm very thankful for that, and like the ways in which people can be so generous and so helpful and so just
Yeah.
fun to be around, as like we had talked about, is something that it's really great. And I try to like really push that, because as much as, again, the best stories are the horror stories,
Yeah, they
right?
are.
They're so funny, and you're like, gosh, like I can't believe that happened. And they're the stories that go viral or
Yeah.
whatever, and that you remember quite a bit. But I know, like at its core, like especially like the ways in which I've seen Among Us, like, and how like people have used it for charity, or how
Oh.
classrooms have played it, or how families have played it, or how people talk about how it like kept them in touch with their best friend
Yeah.
over the pandemic. Yeah, those experiences for me make it, yeah, they're just, there's no way to say it without sounding
No, no,
sappy,
yeah, they
basically.
make it worthwhile. Basically, they make
They
it.
do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that very similar
Mhm.
and so forth. We have experiences where we get messages like people be like, "I really relate to this character" and so forth. Like a lot of people that struggle with identity have related to our main character, and you just get stuff like that, and you're like, your eyes are like, oh, like you don't expect stuff like that, and then you just get it, and it's like from complete strangers around the world. You wouldn't expect it, and it's although there's some experiences where like some days you're exhausted, you've got burnout or fatigue and so forth, that does happen still,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
but then there's a flip side, like you just keep reaching out to more people, and they're like there's charities and so forth, and it just makes it's making someone's day better, like playing your game or being invested in that, and
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
cool without sounding too over the top.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for
But
sure.
yeah, and I think that leads us on to our summary. So, if you could say one thing about building a community, what would you say?
Ooh, good. Oh man, do I get like? Is it like in a
You can
sentence,
say it
or
however
is
you
it like
like.
one thing about building community? Okay, okay, okay. All right. Okay.
You're like,
Yes, I got this. I
okay.
got this. In terms of building community, I think it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and the payoff isn't immediate, but it is always worth it. From all of the experiences that I've had, I think one of the beautiful things about community is that, you know, we're very, I think, as players, as developers or whatever, we're very vocal about what we love, and that's really cool. But I think the fact that community kind of makes you step back and it's like talks about, well, how do you love this thing? Are you welcoming people
Yeah.
in? Are you being like open about it? Are you having fun with it? And are you, you know, like it's not just about the what, but about the how and the why. And I think that's what I really love about community building.
Yeah. I was going to say something very similar. So let me think of something new really quickly. No,
No, do whatever
I
you
was going to
want.
say the experiences as well. Yeah, they are really worth it. They are really worth the payoff and so forth. And just seeing it
Mm-hmm.
go from scratch. A lot of communities I've obviously done are from absolute scratch. So from zero to like where they are now is just, it's so fulfilling and so forth. And I don't see it
Mm-hmm.
anywhere else. And it's nice, like just logging in and getting those messages and just being like, hi everybody, and like having people actually speak back to you and mention random little things they're finding in the game and just be like, oh wait, I did this today, and you're like, we didn't even know about that, but that's amazing. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
even though yeah,
for
even
sure. And I,
oh,
yeah.
you carry on.
Oh no, no. I was gonna say like from like my experiences, like every single community, like so I've been in community management for like 4.5 years
Yeah.
now, and like every single time I'm in a new community, I'm like, wow, this community, the best community I've ever been. Like, who could be this kind? And then I'll go to another community, like, whoa, wait, this community also very amazing, very nice people in this one. And then I'll like go to a new one, I'm like, oh no,
There's
there's
more. There's
more.
always more. But yeah.
You know, it's
So
great.
community, yeah, it's worth the payoff.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
that gives us our thank you for listening to us both. You can find Victoria. Are those all
Ooh.
your links? I think they are. You can find Victoria there, and there, and there. And you can find me there. But thank you so much, Victoria, for coming by and talking. And we hope you enjoyed this chat between us and you've learned something new about the community today. And
Yes,
that's
thank you for setting this entire thing up, and have a great PAX, everyone.
bye.